Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. For those of you watching us live, and also for those of you who are going to watch the broadcast later on LinkedIn, a very, very warm welcome. I am super thrilled to invite Elise, who is a board member at Thrive and has been a repeat mentor at Thrive, and overall an amazing woman. A very, very warm welcome to you, Elise. How are you
Oh,
today?
thank you so much, Shivangi. Pleasure to be here.
Such a pleasure to be here. Elise has a background in corporate marketing. She spent around 30 years in big global financial organizations like Thomson Reuters. And now she's in her second career. She's an executive coach and the founder of an amazing organization called Enkuzi Change, which really focuses on leaders becoming better at coaching through getting coaching themselves. Elise is a Londoner but lives in Ireland and in Mallorca. I envy you for that, Elise. And married to Martin, mom to three grown daughters, and also a grandma. Who would ever think that looking at you, Elise?
Oh, thank you. Ollie is the sunshine in our life.
Oh, that is really, really amazing. Alice, can you walk me through a little bit of your, personal and also professional life trajectory? Because I know that when we've spoken over the years, I've just been amazed at how rich, your both your personal life and professional life has been. So please walk us through a little bit of that, especially around some phases, that made, things become very alive for you, I guess, at that phase in the life.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm a bit scared by the word trajectory because that kind of indicates I know where I'm heading.
Okay.
And maybe I do, maybe I don't. In part, I know where I'm heading. What I can talk about is where I've come from.
Right.
So, yeah, I grew up in London, in northeast London, the youngest daughter of four siblings in a very entrepreneurial family. So both my mum and my dad ran their own businesses,
Mm.
and what my two of my siblings ran their own businesses as well. My other sister is an academic. So I was the only person in our family who went into kind of big business, corporate life. And that was strange. And nobody in my family could really understand why I was doing that and where it would take me. But I think part of the reason that I did that was I was searching for some sense of security when I was younger. And I felt like working in a large business would give me that sense of stability, that sense of security. And also, I was excited by global businesses and the opportunity to meet lots of different people from lots of different countries that I would never have had access to apart from that. I kind of fell into marketing, to be honest with you. I'm not sure I really intentionally chose either marketing or financial services, but
Right.
that's actually where I spent the next 30 years. I worked in big financial organizations like Lloyd's TSB, NCR, Reuters, and then Thomson Reuters, climbing the corporate ladder. Although climbing indicates that I went in a straight line, that definitely didn't happen. I had several wiggles along the way. And during that 30 years, I created an enormous bank of experience of what it's like to work in big organizations, what it's like to become a middle leader in those organizations, which I think is actually the hardest place to be, and then to break into the C-suite. As I was in my last role, the chief marketing officer for a part of Thomson Reuters that we actually span out and sold to venture capital, which was an incredible experience. And during that 30 years, that's the professional bit. During that 30 years, I got married twice. Didn't get the first one right at all, apart from the fact that I had Amy, my eldest daughter, who is 30 next month, and
Wow.
she has Ollie, who is 10. Got it right the second time, definitely, with Martin. I learned some crucial lessons in my first marriage, and I got better at it, especially in the selection. And we've been married, I don't know, 24, 25 years.
Wow.
And we have Cassie and Julia, who are our other two daughters. And then I guess during that 30 years, what I learned most about myself is I'm capable of so much more than I think I am. And my ability to tap into that more is dependent on my frame of mind, how I'm looking after myself, who I'm surrounding myself with, the support I can get, and that leads to self-belief and confidence. And I got a lot of that through my experience of executive coaching. I was really lucky. I got access to an executive coach as part of I think it was actually the very first instance of women in leadership course that was run at Thomson Reuters about 15 years ago, or maybe even longer than that. And as part of that, I had an executive coach for 6 months. And since then, it transformed my life so fantastically that I've never been without a coach since then. So it was quite a natural choice for me when I decided to leave corporate life to choose to become a coach, because I felt as though that's where I could have the greatest impact.
Yes, so many of your coaches, some of them are in the trifold, and you are an amazing coach. I'm so aware of that. And now you have coaching as a business also, so that is fascinating. Tell me a little bit about, out of all of these phases, and you just mentioned, okay, didn't get the marriage right, and the second marriage. What has been the most challenging phase, I guess, because it's not instances, but I guess it's a couple of years, maybe sometimes that struggling and try to find your way again. What has been the most challenging? Why, and what did you learn from that?
I think there are two chapters that really come to my mind when you ask that question. The first one was when I was pretty young. My first marriage fell apart within 2 years. It didn't last long at all. And yet the fallout from that emotionally was huge for me. And I think that was part of my striving for security, because I was 25 when I had Amy. Very early in my career. I think I'd only been at work a couple of years. I expected to be a stay-at-home mum for at least the first few years of her life. I couldn't do that because I needed to support us. I suddenly was thrown into this situation where I was a single mum and needed to create some security around that. So I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on my career and being the best mum I can be to Amy. And that was really tough. That 5-year period, when I had her on my own. So my husband and I split up before she was even born. And that first 5-year period when she was little was really hard and unexpected. So that was the first kind of chapter that and was probably very formative for me in terms of me stepping into an independent adult life, which I don't think I had done up until that time. And that was forced upon me and difficult, but like every difficult period that we experience, it created an enormous amount of growth and learning, and I was a springboard actually for the next stage in my life. So that's the first period that comes to mind. The second period that comes to mind was when during the financial crash, so 2008, and then for the next 5 years, because I was working in financial services and global business, the impact was huge commercially. There was a lot of uncertainty. I was the major breadwinner in our house, and my job was constantly at risk. And the children, the girls were going through, their various kind of formative stages themselves. And I was away from home all the time. I was in New York or London, whereas my family was in Ireland. And that was really tough because I was constantly asking myself, is this worth it? Am I paying too high a price? Being away from my family and not enjoying the instability and difficulty and challenge at work. It was a very, very hard time. Yeah. So those are the two periods that I think kind of come to mind. There've been others, but those were probably the ones that had the biggest impact on me.
The second period, Elise, that you mentioned, I know innumerable people are going through that over the last couple of years. Not the financial crisis, of course, which, of course, with the war, etc., I think those elements are there. But the pandemic sort of also pushed thousands and thousands of people in that direction. And there's a huge narrative in the media that women have been impacted very negatively through the pandemic. The whole equality agenda has been pushed back by a couple of decades again. I personally also know many women who are continuously asking themselves this question: is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Because on the one hand, they are holding on to some nuance, some form of stability to have that job, to get that paycheck at the end of the month. But often at the cost of their personal well-being, of finding a more creative, generative way of living their life.
Yeah.
Speak to me a little bit about, what does it take, and how do you make the decision that it is really worth it? I mean, a recent conversation I had was, do I need that, third international holiday, which of course my fancy job allows me to have.
Yeah, more travel. Yes.
And take local holidays and have 2 days for myself, every week, where I can be generative and creative.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer. I know what worked for me over a period of time, and it's not a magic bullet, because certainly my experience is we need to constantly work on these questions. Then there's not a I've got it in the shower moment. We need to constantly refresh our thinking around, is it worth it? And what really matters to me is the question I think we need to address. So what really matters to me when you're under a lot of stress and you feel burdened and there's a lot of uncertainty gets pushed away, because it's more about survival than thriving. And that's the mistake that I made, I think, because I made so many compromises personally to keep the professional wheels turning, that what really mattered to me got lost for a while. And that's probably why I look back on that time and say that was so difficult. So getting really clear on what really matters to you and building boundaries around that helps us stay sane, helps us keep our ability to make the right decisions, helps keep judgment in place, so that when we are facing these difficult times, we are much more centered. When you kind of go all out on the anxiety and just think, I have to do anything to keep this or get this job, and all of your boundaries fall away and all of your self-care falls away, and you start making compromises that you would never make if you were in a balanced place. It is what happened to me. So the learning is get really clear on what matters to you, build that into how you live your life, and stay accountable to that. Whatever matters to you doesn't just matter to you today. It needs to matter to you every day. It's about consistency. It's about building a sense of stability and some margin where you can not just survive, but start to thrive again for yourself. Because otherwise you've got, what are you doing it all for?
Yeah, no, for sure. That one of the challenges, and this comes often from various mentees and coaches, is I'm not sure what really matters for me. So this is, and some of it is because of the anxiety, because of the narrative, because of the society, societal pressures of what success looks like, what good looks like. I think some of it is that, but some of it is this, somehow I think internally the radar is missing. You're like, yeah, I like this, and oh, I also like this, and so it's a weird juxtaposition of not being very sure about what is very important, because you need that, I don't know what you call it, like a North Star, right, to go in that direction. what would you say to somebody who's really not sure what is most important to them, and hence the voices, and this might be of a spouse, of a boss, of a child, of a mother, whatever. I mean, there can be many different voices that you might hear, either as a man or as a woman. How do you really figure that out, right? I don't want to ask this big question around what is my purpose in life, etc.
No, yeah.
No, really not. Something, very practical, saying, what is it that gives me joy? And as you know, this is a very important, topic for me, because I really believe in, how do you live a life of abundance, right? How do you feel that abundance? But what have you used to gauge, what is it
Yeah.
for you, even if you had let go for it for a period in your life? And maybe it was through coaching that you came to it, but how did you arrive at that? And then how did you hold on to that?
Well, so the first thing that I would advise anybody to work on is, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that must be in your life for it to be in any way enjoyable and fulfilling? And start making a list. Literally write the things down that you would not compromise on, and notice your emotions. So there was a formative moment for me where Julia, our youngest daughter, was 6, and she turned 6, and I was in Japan. And I was on a work trip. It was supposedly really important that I was there on that day. And it made me so unhappy that I wasn't there on her 6th birthday, that was a flag for me. And that, from that moment, so on my list, I put, I'm never going to miss any of my kids' birthdays. And that was the first thing on my list. And then a few days later, I wrote, and I'm never going to miss Martin's or my birthday either. Because the initial thought was, that brought me so much pain, I don't ever want that to happen again. So I wrote that down. But then I thought, actually, it's not just my children's birthdays that matter. It's us being a family.
Yeah.
And being together in those important moments that matters. So, right, I wrote that down. There was another instance where I had to cancel a family holiday at the very last minute, like a few days before, and had to be in New York instead of being in Greece on holiday with my family. And that caused my family so much upset. Even though I got a huge bonus and I could rebook the holiday and, whatever, the sense of this isn't fair, this isn't what we signed up for, this isn't okay, was so huge in the family that went on my list. So first of all, build your list of non-negotiables. What are the time parameters that you will allow yourself to work and that you won't go over those boundaries? What are the events that are important to you? What's the rhythm of your life that's important to you? And then I would say build in a lot of margin around the edges, because that's just surviving. Your non-negotiables is just surviving. Then the margin is where you create joy, where you create the sense of thriving. So what's going to bring me joy? And there were things in my life that I just had stopped doing that I really enjoyed doing, that I started to build back in. And I realized that in doing that, I was actually doing the third thing, which I would say is really important, which is surrounding yourself with the right people. Because some of my friends had just fallen out of my life.
Yeah.
Because they were, not critical to my success at work. And I was so focused on my success at work that they had just fallen away. And when I started building in the margin, I started reaching out to them, spending time with them, and I realized, actually, this is part of why I want to be alive in this world, is the connections that I have with the people that matter to me. So those are the 3 things I would say. Build your non-negotiables list, but don't stop there, because that's just surviving. Then build in the margin, and then work out who you want to be in your life with, because at the end of the day, people matter far more than anything else.
Definitely. And these challenges keep coming up, in your life all the time, right? I mean, recently you had openly written on LinkedIn about the whole experience of brain tumor that you had, and how you do that. And and one of your children had a change in their gender.
Transgender, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. I'm just thinking there's like a series of challenges.
Yes.
And you remain unstoppable. I'm just wondering what is that inner drive that just keeps you going and still be this, really shining, happy self. How do you do that?
Well, if I knew the answer to that, I'd bottle it and sell it. I come back to this absolute belief that I have that we are not given any challenges that we're not up to, and that we can learn from those in such a productive way that the pain that we experience in the moment, I'm not diminishing the fact that these challenges are painful, but the pain that we experience in the moment is totally eclipsed by the growth that experience offers us, and our ability to take that into the next chapter, the next period, and be so much more of ourselves because we've grown personally in that period. It's incredibly hard to go through a really big challenge. So for example, when one of the challenges I faced was when Amy, our eldest daughter, told us that when she was 19 that she was pregnant. Unexpected, sudden pregnancy. She was in her first year at university and she'd fought so hard. She was studying fine art in Crawford College in Ireland, which is a very highly acclaimed fine art college. And here's this bombshell out of nowhere. And she decided to keep the baby, and we helped her and supported her. And actually, that was an amazing decision to make. And Ollie is absolutely the sunshine in our lives. But for me, the difficulty was not just the news, I'm pregnant, but actually watching my little girl have a baby, out of sequence of the expectation that I had for her. And what I needed to let go of at that point was my expectation. And I think actually that's been the biggest lesson I've had in life, is to, we all have expectations, right? We are all brought up to have expectations, but disappointment happens in the gap between our expectation and our reality. That's where disappointment lies. So in order to navigate these difficult times, what I've learned is I personally need to let go of the expectation and go with what is presented to me, go with the flow and work with that. And I think that's what I've learned to do professionally, because curveballs come every 3 months, usually quite big ones. And you have to let go of but that's not fair. I didn't expect that to happen. I'm on this route and suddenly this has happened. It's like, let go of that. It's not helping you. Let go of it. Work with what you've got. Make the best of what you've got. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And use that learning in the next chapter. And that's, when Julia came to us and said, yes, I'm transgender, that was like, but you're my son. And she's like, I'm your daughter. And the big learning for me was let go of my expectation and lean into, okay, tell me about that. Talk to me about that. Let me learn, let me grow, let me understand. And then that's been quite a journey. And I'm very grateful for that journey. It's been huge.
And have you been on these journeys just sort of learning about it through yourself, or are you getting professional support, counseling, anything when you go through all of these?
Well, I think
huge life-changing events.
Yeah, I think I probably could have, the moment I could have done with counselling in retrospect the most was when my first marriage broke up. But I didn't. And I think that's because 30 years ago, counselling wasn't as available, wasn't as accepted as a route. But I think I really could have done with it then. Right. I haven't had counselling, but I have surrounded myself with people who can help me. And maybe that's a form of counselling. So, for example, when Julia said she was transgender, the first thing I needed to do was understand, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, I have a view, but I'm probably wrong. So just educating myself, talking to people, understanding what was going on for her, what that meant, and what the journey was likely to be, was a form of counselling for me, because I needed to understand. No, knowledge is power. I needed to understand more about that. And I think the same thing with the brain tumour. So the first thing I did was just talk to as many experts as I possibly could about what is this, and what are the potential treatments. We spent, I don't know, the first month of the time when I was diagnosed just talking to people, not making any decisions. And I think that's so, surrounding yourself with the support and the people that are going to help you is really important. And if that's a counsellor, that's what you need to do.
Sure, yeah.
Never try and do any of this stuff on your own. You know, that's the hardest route.
It is. You know, as you were saying, that let go, because disappointment happens there, and we always have expectations, and then we let go. I'm just wondering, how does somebody balance, the fact that we are asked to have goals and intentions, and that we work towards them, and then at the same time, life is always throwing us new challenges, and we need to let go. So how do you keep that tension between, because I mean, we know enough about the fact that we must have goals, and it allows us to probably do more than what we thought if we didn't have goals, right? So, but at the same time, you can almost be sure that there will be something that that's going to happen. So
something's going to happen. That's for sure. Something's going to happen. And it's not going to go as planned. But you know what? The not as planned version in my life has always been better than the planned version could ever be. And I couldn't see that, but I can see it now in retrospect. Yeah. And I would even say that about my brain tumor, right? So I'm well, I've had treatment, I'm well. But what I learned about myself during that period was huge. And I'm now using that. It was almost like putting I talk about work out what matters to you. When you get a diagnosis like that comes into sharp focus. It's like, I really need to understand what matters to me. And so it was almost like a doubling down of that work. It was like, okay, you said that all these things matter to you, and you've done some work to protect them, but life's drifted, and you started dropping your boundaries again. I was working too hard. I was very focused on career again. And suddenly this curveball comes, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a reminder then, isn't it? And I started to double down on the things that were important to me, because I knew that if I looked after myself and the things that are important to me, then I would be able to cope and move through that difficult period. And it's always led to something better. So.
And what is better is also a matter of perspective, isn't it? I mean, when you say after going through so many of these bumps in your life that it has actually led to better, I think so much of it is your mindset and your attitude about it. I know several people who actually may very much struggle to say that this is better, or the other version, the unplanned version, is better. And that's my last question to you, Elise. If somebody is in this moment, listening to us, and in this moment going through this really dark phase in their life, where they cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, where they feel as if this unplanned thing that is happening is really, too much for them. They cannot take all that darkness at this stage. Too many things have not worked. What would you say to them to sort of, feel, or let's say encourage them to live through that phase? Because everybody does know everything changes, right? Even terrible things in life, they will change.
Yeah, absolutely, completely. So what I would say is, first of all, be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would your best friend. That is, because we tend to blame ourselves for these bad things that are happening to us. In some way, I must have brought this on myself. I don't think I'm alone when I have that feeling. So first of all, be kind to yourself. And secondly, don't try and do this on your own. Know that it will pass. Everything will pass. We've talked about change, and this curveball or this difficult period, this dark chapter will pass. And in order for you to come out the other side and be able to use it as a springboard, you need to keep yourself as well as you can, mentally, physically, emotionally, and also surround yourself with people who can help you and not make it worse.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you very much. This has been a very, very insightful, and you've been so open with all your life experiences. I think when we hear stories, of real people, real life, going through all of these challenges and living through, that is so, so inspiring.
No, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you very much. I just want to say one last thing, and that is Thrive with Mentoring is launching its first cohort in Manchester on the 21st of September. So any of mine and Elise's network who are watching this, please tell your friends to join in. And we also have another chapter in Tel Aviv on the 9th of September. So those are the two cities. If anybody is listening to this, then please spread the word.
Yes, absolutely. Thrive is a gift for mentors and mentees. It's a wonderful experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you once again for being such an amazing ambassador, repeat mentor, and really, being an overall support to Thrive all the time.
It's a pleasure.
Take care. Bye for now, Elise.
Bye.
Paris. Bye.